Hi, I'm Emyle Watkins, and this is the WBFO Disabilities Beat. This week, we continue our series, Voices of Disability Pride, with local advocate Gwen Squire. Squire is a part-time advocate support professional for People, Inc., and founder of Outside the Box Associates, an organization focused on rethinking disability advocacy and inclusion. This interview has been edited for length and clarity. Well, Gwen, thanks so much for joining me on WBFO.
Yeah, thank you for having me here.
I'd like to start by asking you why you became interested in disability advocacy and hear a little bit about your career.
I guess it started when I was a kid. I lived in an institution. Back in the 60s, I was placed out there until 1977. And I saw things and heard things, and I would talk to the director about it if I thought it was wrong. And I didn't realize it back then, but I was advocating for people that couldn't advocate for themselves. So I remember thinking to myself, even when I was 10, when I get older, I'm not going to let things like this go on. People getting hit or, having their hair pulled because they talked back or for whatever reason. Because not all the staff were like that, of course, but there were a few staff that were not nice, and I just remember thinking, I'm not going to let that happen for people who can't talk. I'm going to talk for them if I have to.
That's incredible to hear, and I imagine that had to be a really difficult place to grow up.
Yes, it was.
And I know that for much of your career, from what I've read, it's focused on self-advocacy and self-determination. Can you tell me a little bit more about why that's important for people with disabilities to understand these movements and skills?
I think especially self-advocacy, you're advocating for yourself. And it's really important to let people know, like for myself, I'm just like everybody else. In spite of the fact that I have a disability, I may do things differently, but I can still do those things. Doctors told my biological parents, well, she'll never make it past a certain age. It was like 12. First it was 1, then 8, then 12. And then she's never going to go to high school. She's never going to go to her prom. She's not going to learn how to drive. I've done all those things. And I think if I had listened, to the negative stuff being told, I probably would have believed it. But I thought to myself, I want to prove to myself, too, that I can do those things just like anybody else could do them. And the wheelchair's not going to stop me. Having a surgery isn't going to stop me.
Do you think the expectations of people with disabilities has changed?
I think it's gotten better, definitely since I was born. Yeah, since the 60s. I think sometimes doctors are still predicting when someone may or may not die or what they can and cannot do. But I think that if parents keep an open mind and say to themselves, well, if I listen to the doctors right now or so-and-so, my kid might not achieve anything. But if I let my kid kind of go and I don't put a label on them right away, of being slow or whatever, let's try them in a classroom first and let's see how they do. I think, if you do it that way, you can give your kid even though they've got a disability, you can give them what they need and to try. Never be afraid to try.
And what would your advice be to a younger Gwen or someone else with a disability who's just kind of getting started on their own journey of advocating like you did when you were 10? Probably
to never give up on your dreams and just never to give up on your what you believe in, and to always speak up for people. If they can't speak up for themselves or if you are afraid to speak up for yourself, just take that chance and just go ahead and jump. If you fail at it, then you fail at it. At least you'll learn from the failure. What did I do wrong? What did I say wrong? Did I approach it wrong? So I would tell my younger self to just keep trying.
Have there been certain points in your career where you took that jump? You did something where you weren't sure how it was going to turn out and it turned out better than you expected?
I guess going to college is one of them. I had a hard time in high school because I had been mainstreamed into all regular classes by the 9th grade. And that kind of freaked me out a little bit. I was terrible at math and I felt like I was stupid at math, but come to find out years later that people with my disability, which is spina bifida, have difficulty either doing math or doing reading. They've done research on it and studies that found that out. And I wish I had known that back then, then I would have said, oh, that's my issue. It's not that I'm stupid. I just take a little bit longer learning certain things.
Speaking of your education, you ended up getting a master's in rehabilitation, right?
Yes, I do. It's rehabilitation. I got it in 2001. I did it in 2 years, so I was very proud of myself for that because years in the past, like even through high school, junior high and all that, I usually ended up having at least one surgery where I was out for weeks and I had to play catch up. So that didn't exactly help. I did have surgery my final year of college in 2000 actually, that year, 2001. And I ended up being out of school for a week, but then I went right back to school And I kind of just jumped right back in and caught up with everything. And I was just really proud of myself for the fact that I graduated on time with my friends and coworkers.
That's
colleagues,
awesome.
I should say. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about what that degree allowed you to do with your career.
I always wanted to work with people with disabilities and teach them that things may be tough for you because you've got a disability, but you can do anything you set your mind to. So the degree definitely helped me get my foot in the door in a lot of places. Like they call themselves XSVR now. It used to be called VEST when I went and gotten aid for school and take classes and stuff like that. But I actually worked for them for their summer. And I think it's because I did an internship with them for, school, for class.
So it sounds like your degree helped you get in the door more places.
Yes.
I think a lot of times it seems like people with disabilities have to work twice as hard to have the same opportunities as someone else.
Yeah, I think so.
Do you feel like people with disabilities often have to get degrees just to do things that people without disabilities can do?
Yes. I've spoken to that with Mike and Alex and everything. We've talked about how we feel like because we have disabilities, we have to prove ourselves a lot more. We have to work harder in school. We had to, do the internships that everybody else has had to do, but we had to do it like we had to prove that we could be there just as well, be on site and do the work that everybody else can do. Yeah, I feel like that a lot of times.
And kind of bouncing off of that, what do you wish non-disabled people understood about our community and understood about us?
I wish they understood that just because we do have a certain disability, it doesn't mean that we're not people, that we don't think like other people do, that we can't do the things that they can do, but just different. We do it differently.
Is there someone you look up to or admire in the disability community?
My adopted mom, I looked up to her big time. She was from Germany, and she went through World War II, and she lost a sister because of that, and because they were bombed out. And she came over here in 1952, I think it was, 51, 52. And she went through a lot of things in her life, and she overcame those things. So she was somebody I really looked up to a lot. And then I have my staff, Sally. I look up to her, too. She's been with me for, I think, about 10 years now. She was my family care liaison first. She's gone through some stuff in her lifetime, too, that we've shared. And she's overcome those things, too, and I just think it's very cool.
That's great. And lastly, is there anything that you've learned in your career that sticks with you? Maybe a skill or an idea that you carry with you every day? If
I were to say that, I'd touch on what I said earlier about making mistakes, and it's okay to fail. I've learned that it's not a terrible thing to be a failure at something. You can fail at something and learn from it and just improve off of it maybe the next time. Or not. Maybe you have to let it go, but that it's okay to do that. And to fail is to be human, too. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Gwen. I appreciate you chatting with me today. Thank you for having me. You can listen to the Disabilities Beat segment on demand. View a transcript and plain language description for every episode on our website at WBFO.org. I'm Emyle Watkins. Thanks for listening.